Hi, welcome to another episode of Pragmatic Woodworking. On this episode, I'm going to show you how I cut my dovetails, and we'll talk a little bit about tools and the essentials and the options. Stay tuned. Okay, let's get started cutting some dovetails. Okay, first things first, I got my two pieces of stock here. These happen to be sized the same width. They were cut from the same board. So the first thing you want to do is you want to label them. Which one's going to be pins, which one's going to be the tails. Now that's important because if it's going to be a drawer side, you want it to be the tails, right? Here's the tail side of a drawer, right? You cannot pull the tails out of the pins this way. Okay, so that's a mechanical joint there. You cannot pull that apart. You want the pin board to be the front or the back of the drawer, and the side of the drawers will always be your tails. Okay, so it's important to mark them. So here I've put a T and a P for tails and pins. Okay, get a good marking gauge or a cutting gauge like this. Marking gauge, cutting gauge. Okay, and set it to the width of the board. You can do that very simply by putting this registration face onto whatever board you're going to be cutting first, and then lower the cutting part of it down onto the lower board, and that'll set the depth or the width here. Pretty straightforward. The tail board we cut all the way around, right? Because you got to cut the sides off. You'll be cutting the side off, which is that half pin. Okay. The pin board, you only do the front and the back, the two faces. You don't do the edges because there's nothing to cut off right there. Okay, set the pin board aside. So get yourself a good marking gauge like this, preferably a cutting one. Okay, you can use a pin one or a marking one. This is a cutting gauge. You can use a marking one which has the pin, but that's just going to scribe on the board, whereas a cutting will actually sever the fibers. You clamp this board down, and now I have these markings on here already. Okay, and what I do is first of all, you put it face down because you want to scribe the back. Okay, so you have this now face down, clamp to a good surface. Okay, you have this clamped in. The back side of the tails is up, and what you do is, this is known as the 140 trick. So this is a little angled block plane. It's a skewed block plane, I should say. This comes from when Stanley was selling their block planes known as the 140s. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little nicker right here on the block plane, and I'm going to ride it right along the edge of I'm going to ride this block plane right along this cut line, and I'm going to skew the back of this just a hair. Of course I'm getting movement because I don't normally do this up here. And what this is going to create is this little shelf on the back of the piece. and this will become very apparent later. You don't want to go very much, just enough to make this little ledge. I want to get the inset here. There. Okay, that's it. That's all I'm going to do. That's the 140 trick, named after the Stanley 140 little block plane. Okay, that's created this little ledge, and you'll see where that comes in when we want to line up to draw the pins, to trace where the pins go. Okay. Again, an optional step. You don't need to do that. I do it. I do that because it makes it easier for me. I like to make sure those pins and tails are dead on. Put the tailboard back into your vise. Now, make sure the back is away from you. Right? That's the part that we just scribed. Okay. Now, I use these dividers to do this. Again, these are optional. You can take a ruler and measure this out. I like to use these dividers because this comes in real handy when you have a marathon of dovetails to cut. So I have these preset. I have 2 of them. These are Veritas ones. I like these because they have nice sharp points. All these I've used to measure out my dovetails. This first one is to do the half pins on either side. You can see I just put that point on the edge of the board and push down on here and make these little dots. Now I have these little dots in here that I can actually set my pencil down into. I'm done with that one. I get my second one. Now the way you set this is you put it in the first pin and you walk it down. Don't sink that point yet. Okay? You're just resting it on top. You're going to look at the distance between this hole you made, the second one, with that point. That distance in there is going to be the width of your pin. To me, that looks good. If you had a big longboard, you would just walk this down. Okay? So here, I just have 2 tails we're making. Sink it, now sink it, I'm good. Pick it up, come to the other side, put that point in that hole, and sink it down. Now I have these 2 holes in the middle here. Okay? The gap in the middle there is the width of my pin. Get yourself a good dovetail guide, marking guide. This is the Lee Nielsen one. I got the 6 and the 7, or the 6 and the 7. I only ever use the 1 and 6 side, mostly because I like to see the dovetail. This is where these pins come in handy. Put your pencil in there and mark it. Skip a hole, go to the next one, mark it. Turn it around, come back the other way. Skip, and there's your tails. Okay? Now, when you're starting off and you're practicing, do the back side too. That's also a nice thing about these holes, is that it's very easy to reference again and to pick up where you left off. Okay? Now these lines are parallel with each other on either side. So that's going to help me when I'm sawing to make sure that I'm staying square to the board. Okay? Always, whoops, see? That's wrong. Always mark, and that's why. Mark what you're gonna saw out. Always mark it. See? That's why, because we do make mistakes. Okay. So I now have the pins marked that I'm going to be sawing out. Okay. A quick on saws. This is a bad axe, Silhouette. It's about $245. I like this one because it has this 12-inch blade, which helps me with the. I like the extra length for the throw of my arm. Okay, the throw being the full motion of my arm. I like the extra length for that. This also has a good weight to it. We'll talk about sawing technique as we go through the cut here, but essentially the weight of the saw will carry itself down through the cut. I don't have to push it. You don't want to push the saw into the cut. Let the weight of the saw carry itself through. Okay, sawing technique. It is absolutely critical and important that the saw is square to the board when you make these cuts. If it's not, you're going to have gaps and it's not going to look right. Okay, so another reason why I like these bad axe saws: one, they're made here in Wisconsin. Two, they support veterans. They hire veterans and support veterans, which is great. And three, the first inch of this saw plate is a relaxed rake, meaning the tooth isn't so far forward, it's back a little bit. And the reason they do that is to start your cut. So I use my thumb as a guide, curl my fingers so I don't saw through them, and then set the plate against my thumb right on that line on this far corner. And I use that first inch or so to start the saw until I break the arris. And then I slowly lower it down little by little onto that line that I just drew. So get yourself a good dovetail saw, okay? I like the bad axe saws because he puts a hybrid file on this tooth line, which means I can use this saw for both rips and cross cuts, whereas other saws you might have to buy two saws to do that. So sawing technique: get your body out of the way of your arm. You want this locomotive motion back and forth, straight through, and the only way you can do that is to get your body out of the way. Okay, my body is back to the side. I can see the cut, and it allows my arm to swing freely. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this far edge with this front line. Essentially, I'm going to be cutting a triangle line, right? A diagonal line in the internal of this board. Okay, and I do that by just lowering this front, and I'm watching this point here. Okay, this essentially, I'll show you on this side. I'm watching this point, and I'm watching that track along my line. Okay, and I'm not sawing down the back yet. I'm lowering the saw, letting it do the work. Okay, so I've tracked on my line here, not on the back. Now I'm going to use this saw kerf to let the saw, and I'm just pushing the saw and raising it up, and I'm letting the saw kerf guide the saw. And I'm focusing on keeping my saw square to the board as I push it through. And I split that line on the back without even looking at it. Okay? Sawing technique: you push the saw. Push it. Don't drive it. All you do is I'm just pushing the saw straight through. That's it. And I'm letting the weight of the saw carry itself down through the board. I'm just pushing it straight back and forth. That's it. I'm not pulling it through. I'm tilting it, but I'm not driving it into the wood. I only let the weight of the saw literally carry itself through the cut. Okay? Same thing. It's square. Connect the dots. Okay, now I drifted off my front line here, but that's okay, don't worry about that. You'll make up for that in the tails. That's fine, in the pins. These tails don't have to be perfect at this point. Now I just let the saw, I slowly pick it up and I let the saw just carry itself down through the cut. And I split that line. Don't go past your scribe lines. Okay, so I do both angles that way, then I flip and I do both angles this way. Okay. Make sure that saw stays square. Okay. Square it up. Connect the dots and let it fall. And I don't have a death grip on this saw. I have a very loose, gentle grip. You'll hear sometimes it described as you're holding a baby, you're holding a bird, right? You can have a nice solid grip, confident grip, without crushing the animal. Okay? And you can see I cut those lines. Okay, so we're done with those rip cuts. Now we gotta saw at the waist. Okay? And there's only one here to do. Now, Paul Sellers will teach you to chisel this out, and that's how I started. He'll go straight to the chisel after he cuts off these sides, which we're going to do here in just a second. I've picked up using a fret saw. I like to hog most of this out. I don't like to sit there and chisel all that out. It's good chiseling practice, but I just don't like to do it anymore. Now, this is one of the best fret saws that I found. Other people use coping saws. I use a fret saw. This is about a $150 little saw. It's expensive, but to me it's worth it. I think it's $150. It could be $100, but it's not cheap. It's not a cheap little fret saw compared to a $15, $30 coping saw. So I sink that blade down and I pick it up just a hair and then I give it a quick turn. And because I have that blade actually seated so the tooth line is over here now. It's right here. It's not straight up and down. It's cutting this way across, and I have it matching these orange pins right here, these orange tightening knobs. So all I got to do is watch that those stay up, and I know that blade is going to trap straight across the board and cut a straight line. And there's my pin. Okay. Now I did that first because I gotta take this out now to cut these half pins off. This is where this nice clamp, robo clamp thing comes in handy. I just have to do this one side and then it tightens down. Now, same idea here. This is why you scribe all the way around on the tail board. Put that blade right in your knife line. Same idea. Now this is so small, I don't connect the dots. I just keep it nice and square and I follow my line. And I just pop that off. I tell you, this Robo Vise is really nice. This is all bench crafted hardware. Good stuff. It was worth the build. Again, I'm pushing the saw, and I'm letting the weight carry itself down through. I don't push it through, all I do is push it back and forth. That allows me to focus on guiding the saw through the lines. Okay, so we have a little bit of chiseling to do in the middle now, and then some cleanup where the saw blades usually do not get down into this groove, deep down in there, so you got to kind of chisel that out. Okay, so let's do some cleanup. Which brings us to our next essential tool. Get a good chisel. This is the Lee Nielsen A2 3/8 inch. This is one of my first quality chisels I ever bought. I tell you, this has cut a lot of dovetails, and I practiced and practiced and practiced over the years of sharpening, so my sharpening skills are right up there too. In fact, I sharpened, where I used to work, I sharpened all their kitchen knives. The guys would bring me their kitchen knives and I'd sharpen them all for them. Anyway, so chiseling technique. Do not put this chisel directly on that knife line and start to chisel. You'll actually move the knife line back and you'll create a gap in there. Okay, so I have some material out front here. I need to chisel all that away first. Okay, this is where having that nice narrow chisel is nice. You can get into these tight corners. Do not chisel all the way through. You'll blow out this other end and you'll create a gap. Okay, I actually stopped. If you can see that, I actually stopped halfway through. Okay, I stopped halfway through. Now, since I moved away that material, now I can put my chisel right in my knife line there and clean it up. That will give me a nice crisp edge, and the bevel of the chisel will not push away because there's not enough force to push it back and move your knife line. Okay, you can see I left that material in there because I only chisel halfway through because I don't want to blow out this side. These are unsupported fibers. Okay, so you can just kind of, I'm just pushing them this way and knocking them out. I'm not cutting anything. Okay, so let's chisel this other side now. Same technique. You can see I got plenty of material there. I do not go directly into my cut line or into my knife line yet. I come out in front of it. And I have to chisel the most of this waste away before I can go on that knife line. And the same thing, I only go halfway through, I don't go all the way through. Okay, now I'm gonna go directly in the knife line and I'm gonna go for it. And I nicked my tail edge there. That's okay. That'll be on the inside so nobody will see that. Okay, so there, that's cleaned up. Now you can undercut it if you want. I undercut it. I don't mind undercutting it. Undercutting it means you don't chisel directly across. Okay, that's cutting it straight across. Okay, undercutting it means you're actually lifting the chisel and cutting down into it and creating a little V in here from this outside edge and this outside edge towards the middle. That's undercutting it. What that does is it alleviates anything in the middle here that could interfere with the two pieces coming together. That'll give you a nice crisp edge along these points here. Okay, and that to me is okay to do because this is end grain. End grain has very little gluing, holding capabilities versus your long grain. It's these edges here that will hold this joint together along with the mechanical nature of it. Okay, so if you want to undercut it, I say undercut it. I undercut it. There's some guys that'll teach you not to undercut it. And that's mostly for the sake of just the craftsmanship of accuracy. I don't know. This is one of your creative licenses right here, I suppose. Another technique, when you're cleaning this up with your hand, choke up on the chisel. That's for safety and control. Okay? You don't want to blow this out or be holding it and put a chisel into your palm. Not that I'd know what that feels like. So what I'm doing is I'm just going along here and I'm just cleaning a lot of this up. The other thing you could do here for safety is put it in your vise. Right? Just put it back in the vise. And now you can use this backhand to push and control it with this front hand. Again, choke ups, and that's so you don't blow through it. This is probably the safest way to do this. But it requires you to have to turn the piece around and take it out of the vise, which I suppose is better than a chisel in your palm. No, I don't have that clamped tight enough. Okay. Now, I normally use a bigger chisel for this part, but I'm demonstrating how you can do this with just a single chisel. And I'm just cleaning up a little bit of schmutz that gets into that corner from the saw, because you can't reach it. Same here, you'll see it when you cut it. You'll see these little fuzzies that'll be here in the edge. And you want to just chip them away. And just slowly, evenly clean that up. Okay, get yourself a good chisel. I like the Lee Nielsen's. My favorites are the Lee Valley, the Veritas PMV11s. They are a little more expensive, but that steel is incredible. It's easy to sharpen and it'll hold an edge forever. It's a harder steel. I love those PMV11s. I just don't have a PMV11 that's a 3/8 inch wide chisel. So, but like I said, this Lee Nielsen A2 has cut me a lot of dovetails. Okay, we're basically done with our tails. Okay, we have nice crisp shoulders. It's clean throughout. Okay. So now onto the pin board. Here's where this little shelf comes in handy now. Okay. I'm going to do it up here. Normally you do it somewhere where you got a supporting piece in the back, but I don't want to move the cameras around. We'll be able to do this. Get yourself a good knife, a marking gauge. This is the Veritas one. I like this one. I've also used this little Stanley 10-049. Super cheap. It's like $4 or $5 or something, $6. Comes with a pack of blades on Amazon. This is the same knife. This is what Paul Seller uses. I use this a lot too. You just got to be careful because it has two bevels. You got to make sure you're always turning it so that you get the edge of the knife up into the corner. I don't know. I still love doing that. Use that. I use it all the time. For this application, I've gone to this because I have this flat reference edge now. This knife isn't very much money either. I also have the blue spruce. I'll show it. I like this blade too. This is the small. This is the blue spruce. I really like this knife, but The only thing I don't like about it is this handle is 100% round, whereas this has flats on it, so it won't roll off your bench. My blue spruce rolled off my bench and fell on the tip and ruined it on the cement. I've tried to sharpen it and get the bend out of it, but I don't know, it's just never been the same. So I like this one. Here's where this shelf comes in now. Okay, it's real easy to now register. Right, that's a positive register on the pin board. I know now that this back edge, these two back edges, are tight against each other. Now just take any solid piece. I always use my dovetail jig for this, or gauge, right? So that now, and push it down. See how it registers now? Now I know this is flat and this is flat, and I'm very confident about that. So now all markings from here on out are done with a knife, not a pencil. You need these pins to be dead on, or you don't get that nice dovetail. Now, technique for marking: at first, very gentle. Okay, very gentle, and then the second one's a little harder, and the third one is harder yet. Okay, if you try to go all out right from the beginning, you risk it tracking off the tail, and you won't get that nice mark. Once it's drawn in, it's in. You can track across that pretty easily now. Okay, so there. Now you can't see those with the camera, but I can even come back now that they're drawn in. I can even draw this knife across them. And because I have that groove there, it won't slide. Okay? Now, we have to draw our lines down. Okay? I use this little Starrett combination square for this. You can use any of them. But here's where this comes in now. These are straight lines down, drawn with a knife. Okay? Now, we're cutting out, we're going to be saving the pins, so we're going to be cutting out the dovetails. So if you can get the bruising on the waist side, that's what you want. So the bevel is towards the piece that I'm going to be cutting out. Okay, same here. Okay, flip it around. This is why I like this knife, because I get this flat edge. Okay. Okay. Now, you can do it on this side too if you want. And that might be helpful as if you're starting off to see where you're cutting or where you're sawing. I'm just going to quickly go in and do it. Yeah. Sorry, my back is to the camera. Okay, so now I know to make sure I'm square. Okay, mark out what you need to remove. We're removing this middle tail piece and keeping the pins. Always mark what you're getting rid of. Tom Fidgen will actually color that in. I got the opportunity to meet him. He's quite an individual. Very, very talented man. Okay. Great soul, too. Okay. Same process as with the tails. Cut them out now. Same idea. Start the cut. Now I have that gauge line. Lower it down. Follow your line. And lower the saw. Okay. I cut that line right down the middle, that gauge line. Okay. Do the next one. Same thing. Flip it down. It's square. Saw down your line. Lower the saw right on that gauge line. I did all these. Now I'll rotate and do these, and that's just to muscle memory, just to feel it. Now these are a little harder because you're going to lose your line. This is where having nice bright lights comes in handy. Try to saw the waist side also. I am way off. So pull it up. You can try to correct this. Okay, I'm just going to chisel that out. I'm not sure what I did there. It's because I'm losing my lines here, that's why. I'm going to mark these in because I can't see from this side. I missed it there too. That's alright. Chisel that out. Okay. So we're done there. Same idea. Now this you've got to kind of rock it because you have a different width of the component that you're cutting out. See, I turned the saw as I came across it. Okay. We had a minor incident with our saw. I broke the blade. It's replaced. Let's pick up where we left off. Now I have a portion of the old blade still in here. We'll get that out. We're good. Now, we have some chiseling to do because our sawing wasn't very square on the back, but that's okay. We'll clean it up here. The process here is basically the same. Just clean it up and slowly chisel it out. Remember not to go all the way through, and don't start on your gauge line. You will have to angle it a bit to follow the slope of the pin. This side I can start because I right on the gauge line because it's already gone. There isn't much there. I have a nice sharp shoulder now. Okay, so I'm going to finish those out first and then I'll fix the sawing. Okay. Clean up the edge. Clean up the edge here. Where the saw didn't get all the way down in there. Okay. Put it back in place for this cleanup work. Just take your time cleaning it up. It's no big deal. It's the same idea. Just take it little by little, following the slope of the pin. Don't take too much off. Okay, now I can see I have a little bit more to go here on this back one. But now would also be a good time to check the fit. Okay. It's a little tighter than I want. So I think we got some more cleanup. The other thing you can do is on your tailboard, on this back groove piece here, this is where we cut that groove at the beginning, you can relieve these edges. Come down maybe a 1/16th or a 32nd of an inch. Don't start out here. Take it on the inside, okay, down a little bit, and just relieve that back. Okay, that'll be on the inside edge. This does two things. One, allows the joint to come together, and it also kind of prevents pushing out all the glue when you drive the two together a little. Okay. But that'll definitely help that joint come together more. Now, I think we have here, right on that saw line, is where we're binding. This doesn't usually happen. Okay, let's try it again. Drive it home. A little more gaps in there than I wanted to, but you know what? Don't worry about that. Dovetails. That's how you drive them together. Now, one thing that you can do, if you do have some gaps, I got some gaps in there, even though I was careful and cautious with my sawing. There's a trick you can do. I'll show you this now. You're going to have an awful lot of sawdust left over. Now, when you go to glue these up, save this sawdust. And here's why. You drive it into those corners. It's kind of a poor man's fix. But you can just drive it in. Flip it. Right. Take it. Drive it in. Okay. So now from here, do some cleanup. Right? So this is protruding just a bit. My tails are protruding just a bit, and that's kind of by design. You want that a little bit, right? Because now you can come with the cleanup. Don't plane this way. You'll blow this edge out. Always plane into supported fibers. Get yourself a good plane. Spend some money on these. A good plane will make all the difference. You can find really good vintage ones too. Although some of the vintage ones are now, the good ones are really starting to cost money. Okay, I'm getting nice good shavings. That means my tails are now even. Flip, do the same thing on this side. Okay. And there you go. Nice recovery. That's how I cut my dovetails. You can even, it'll be kind of hard to show with the camera, but it's kind of hard to show with the camera. Sorry, you're moving around here, but you can now even up these edges right here too. That's even. Oops. It's not gonna work. I need to come this way with it. I gotta redo my felt. And now that's even. Just like that, that little bit of cleanup. That's flush, flush, and that's flush. And that's how I do my dovetails. Just like that. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. Questions, comments, leave them down below.